This is Chuck Rowe from Midwest Studies Group. Thanks for joining us again for another edition of our video series. Today, we're going to talk about websites and the impact they can make on your organization. Now, a fancy new website can't promise any organization more supporters, donors, or clients. However, a bad looking one can definitely make a negative impact. This week, I'm joined by Tony Kreinbrink from IFC Studios, who's going to talk over some basic website info with us. Thanks for joining us, Tony.
Thanks for having me, Chuck. Appreciate it.
So, why do you have such passion and fun for building websites to begin with?
You know, it's a good question. I really like, I've always enjoyed taking an idea and making it tangible, delivering, someone's thoughts and ideas into something that actually works and something that you can use and interact with. That's always been a passion of mine. And that's kind of how I got into websites. So that's where it all started.
Now, you literally have made, I don't even want to put a number to it, but I know it's been a lot of websites over the years. So I'll just say that. Um, you've seen some good ones. You've seen some that haven't been quite as good and up to par. What are some common themes you see with those nonprofit websites that look great?
Yeah, I would say when it comes to a website and you hit a website and you immediately think, or what makes me think this is a nice website is number one, it's easy to use and it's easy to navigate. One of the big mistakes I see companies make today is they just have too much. There's just too much content. There's too many pages on your website. And what that does is eventually it just turns people off because they're going to too many places to try to find what they want to find or learn what they want to learn about you. So the websites that I truly enjoy the most, and honestly the ones that I think have the greatest impact, are the ones that do the most with the least. So literally less is more when it comes to a website. It also forces you as a company to determine what are the most important things that we need to be telling our website visitors when they hit our website. Really forces you to think about yourself a lot more critically. And that is a great exercise as well, because you're really getting rid of a lot of the fluff that most people don't really care about. So that's, I would say for me, when I see a great website, it's a website that is very minimal, but it tells the story and gets the point across in a quick way, in a way that's easy to use and easy to navigate.
Well, when you say minimal, that could be such a subjective word when you say something like that. I know one of the things you brought up were the number of pages, but what else, makes you cringe a little bit when you see a website that's not up to your standards at IFC Studios? When it comes to graphics or pictures or sounds, like what are you looking for to not do on a website?
Yeah, I would say poor use of media is another big mistake. Using stock photography is another one that we see quite often. So, stock photography are one of those things that have just been overused over the years. And when you hit a website that uses stock photography, and when I say that, I mean images that are free for anyone to use out there on the web, it's easily noticeable. And in a way, separates it doesn't support your story as a company by having images or media that come from a source that's not your own. So that's, for me, a little bit cringy, I guess you could say, when I hit a website and I think, oh man, I've seen this image on multiple websites in the past. Or you just know that's a stock photo and that's not the actual company. And a lot of times I think as companies, we're afraid to get personal. We're afraid to say, here's who we are and here's what we believe in. Here's our mission and here's who works here. So, getting away from using stock photography and actually investing or using photography of yourself and your team can be a huge step towards improving that initial first impression that someone might get when they hit your website.
Well, something you brought up before is, having too many pages, right? And I'm going to put you on the spot, ask you about some stats that you may or may not know. We'll see
Sure.
if you know these or not. But once upon a time, a long, long, long time ago, The only thing that people would notice when they built websites was at the very bottom, there would be like a hit counter to see how many people would show up on the website, right? And you would love to see that hit counter go up and up. But nowadays, there's so many different stats, and people look at websites differently. No longer are you going to page. A lot of times, it's a one-page website that just kind of like scrolls down with different anchors. So I guess my first part of the question is, you know, what does a website look like these days? And secondly, when you think of some of the stats of besides how many people just visit a website, what are some other things people should look at as far as like how much time they spend in certain parts of the website, or what part of the website is more important than others to look at, or so on?
Yeah. So how people interact with the website today is when they hit your homepage, their eyes follow a Z pattern. So it goes from top left to top right, down the middle, and then back to the right again. And it's been shown that that's sort of the natural way that we look at right when you hit a homepage. That's what you look at, and then the visitor scrolls typically all the way to the bottom, basically scans that page, and then scrolls back up to click on whatever it was that caught their eye or they thought they might have been looking for when they originally found your website. Now, if they can't find something that interests them or they think they might be in the wrong spot, they can immediately bounce or immediately exit your page, right? So what I would say, or how that has sort of changed, is that instead of like you just said, someone scrolling to the bottom and then going to another page and scrolling to the bottom and reading, it just doesn't happen anymore. Typically, it's a very high level scan of your website. And if something does interest them or calls them to action in the right way, then they'll click on that and then begin to engage with your website. So it's crucial, or it's very important on that home page to make it very easy to scan and have your calls to action very simple and very consistent across that entire experience. So they should be seeing your call to action, and it should look exactly the same, 3 or 4 times as they're scanning that home page. And then your other question was about analytics. What are some of the things you should be looking at other than how many hits are you getting on your site? Yes, you hit on one, time on your website. How long is a visitor spending? That's a good metric to look at because, right, it tells you if they're actually engaging, if they're actually reading the content that's on your site. Some other interesting analytics I would say is your bounce rate. So your bounce rate is how many of your visitors, when they initially hit your website, bounce away from your site because it's not what they were looking for, or they didn't get the first impression that they wanted, or they were just confused and bounced out. Bounce rate is a really good stat to look at. You want to just continually try to bring that down as a company. And if you're doing a good job with that first impression, that bounce rate should naturally go down. Exit percentage is interesting too. So how many exit is a little bit different than bounce. Bounce means they hit your website and they leave right away. Exit means they've looked at your website and then they exit your website from a specific page. So looking at your website and saying, what's the highest percentage of the highest page in terms of exit percentage, which means, people are going to our contact page, they're making it there, but maybe they're not filling out the contact form. They're just exiting the site from there. So that's a good sort of metric to look at to say, what pages could we potentially improve to help, our visitors engage instead of just exiting it from there.
Well, to pile on top of that, I just have a two-part question to add on there, and that is, for one, there's a lot of people that build their own websites, and back in the day before all these other companies came into play, you had like these Tripod. Do you remember Tripod at all? They were kind of like a beginning website company that you just build your own thing. And you kind of knew when somebody built their own website. You could tell a difference, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people do that because they feel like they could save money by building their own websites. And I know you take on some clients that have built their own websites. You then take over. So I guess part one of the question is, what are some of the comments that you hear from people after they see your finished product compared to what they used to have? And the second part of that is, why is it so important for a nonprofit to consider having a website hosted with a group like yours, opposed to, whatever random company they might be using on their own?
Yeah, sure. I would say the biggest difference that a company would see from, building a website on their own, or potentially just, working with their son-in-law who knows how to use a laptop really well, as opposed to working with us, is that what we really do is look at your brand from a high level perspective. And then we try to make everything cohesive in terms of your colors, your fonts, your images, your brand, your calls to action, your messaging, your photography, and your media. It all works together and supports each other to create a very cohesive look and feel across your entire website. A lot of sites that you'll hit and you'll think to yourself, it looks like they made this themselves. It looks very templated, and a lot of different, it's not cohesive. And what I mean by that is that you'll scroll down the homepage and there's 20 different font size uses, 20 different font sizes used, or different font families used that don't look good together. The colors are all over the place, and then, like we said earlier, stock photography may be being used. It's just not a cohesive look and feel. And kind of going back to, how does someone scan your homepage? If it doesn't sit well with them, and if it doesn't look nice, it's not aesthetically pleasing, as they're scrolling, they're going to bounce. They're going to end up leaving. So that's the biggest, I would say, comment or reaction that we receive, is that, man, everything just flows. It's like it was built to support. Everything supports each other, from the messaging all the way down to the photography that you see. So that's a big one, I would say. And then the other, to answer your other question about hosting, I would say don't skimp on your hosting. Don't let that be sort of an afterthought. You don't want to find the cheapest option, because it's going to end up leading to other problems down the road. The most obvious being your website could be a lot slower. Your website could be less secure. It will be less secure. Those are the big ones. And in this day and age, now that we've been in business for over 10 years, we've seen what can happen when a website gets targeted by hackers or malicious software. And it can be scary stuff. And business owners can be left on the hook for what may happen as a result of that. So as kind of our experience there, we say, don't skimp on hosting. Think of it as your monthly rent. It's just as important. It can be just as important as making that decision to where you end up living. It can be very much the same to where you end up hosting your website. It could be a big regret down the road. So,
Well, something that's very unique about your group is that you're very well versed in Storybrand. Could you tell us a little bit about what Storybrand is and how you use it with clients?
yeah, great question. So Storybrand it's a marketing framework that helps you as a company clarify your message in a very simple way. And when we originally started as a company, we didn't offer messaging services. We didn't offer website copywriting. We sort of relied on the client, our customer, to provide or write the content for the website. And what we found over the years was that it became a really difficult hurdle, and business owners had a really hard time writing their own messaging and writing their own content. And as a result, to go back to some of my answers earlier, sometimes we would build a great website, but the content wouldn't be there. The content wouldn't be at the same level. And it's like you're missing a very important ingredient when the messaging or the content doesn't fit. So what we've been doing over the years is sort of figuring out what are the elements that make a great website. And what we've found is that messaging is a really important aspect of building a great website. So Storybrand is essentially just a method or a framework that we walk through with the client that takes you through sort of 7 key parts of a story. And it basically builds the story of your company placing you as the company as the guide and placing your customer as the hero essentially of the story. So when they're hitting your website, it's not a bunch of here's what we do, we can help you with this, we'll fix that for you, we'll do this. It's more of uh, what are the problems you're having, here's how we could potentially help you solve those problems. So it's positions your company as a guide and places your customer in the hero role. And it's an intensive framework that you kind of go through. Amy Mertz, who's our creative director, is our certified Storybrand guide on staff here, and she kind of walks through that framework with you and comes up with a tagline, a one-liner, a brand script, a lot of really helpful things that you can use then to turn around and use across all of your platforms to sort of support the message that you've created.
And that's perfect because you hit the nail on the head. Is you go to so many websites, and I think organizations assume that if you put info upon info and just layer that down, that people will be interested in what. In fact, you got me questioning my own website here, Tony. So you make some good points, and it sounds like it's a great idea for people to get a hold of Amy. So whether it comes to the Storybrand product that you work with, or websites and some of the other things that you do, what is the best way for people to get a hold of you in order to learn more?
Yeah, I mean, I would say go visit our website, ifcstudios.com, and check out our work and get an idea for what it is we do. Our the projects where we have the most fun. Your first question was what's kind of fun about it? The most fun projects we have are when we incorporate all four of our studios, which is web, media, branding, and messaging. Like I said earlier, those are the four elements that we've found make a great website. So go check out our website, kind of learn a little bit about our methodology and how we work. And that's a great way to introduce yourselves to us and see kind of how we work together and the work that we produce.
Okay. Well, thanks again for joining us. Really appreciate it, Tony.
Chuck, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And for everyone else, thanks again for watching. Chuck Rowe, Midwest Studies Group. Catch you next time.